Welcome to Sleepy Skies Stories. Tonight we're stepping into a calm and distant world where the sky moves like a slow tide and colours drift above the earth as if they were alive. This video is all about the Northern Lights, 100 soft, sleepy facts that will guide you gently through the night. In this first chapter, we'll begin with the quiet basics, where this light comes from, how it forms, and why it feels so peaceful when you watch it. But before we begin, how are you feeling today? Take a moment and let me know in the comments. Which city are you watching from, what country you're in, and what time it is right now? I always love seeing messages from people listening at midnight, at sunrise, or during a quiet moment in the afternoon. It reminds me that no matter where you are, there is always someone sharing this peaceful moment with you. Take a slow breath, let your shoulders drop, and let's drift back into the story. The Northern Lights are born in a place far above the clouds, where the boundary between our world and outer space begins. Up there, long streams of particles flow from the sun, traveling millions of miles before finally brushing against Earth. When these particles meet the invisible shield around our planet, something gentle and magical begins. The sky responds with light, not sunlight, not fire, but a soft glowing shimmer, a color that seems to float rather than shine, a glow that feels alive even though it makes no sound. It is one of the quietest natural events on Earth, and yet one of the most breathtaking. The aurora begins with solar wind, a constant river of tiny particles drifting outward from the sun. Most of the time, this wind is gentle, but sometimes, after a solar storm, it becomes a strong current of charged particles rushing toward Earth. Our planet catches these particles with its magnetic field, guiding them toward the poles where the atmosphere is thinner and the sky becomes a canvas. When these particles finally collide with gas in our upper atmosphere, light is born. Subtle at first, like a whisper of green. This is why the Northern Lights appear so often near the Arctic Circle, where the magnetic field directs most of this cosmic river. But the colors you see depend on what the particles meet. When they reach oxygen high in the atmosphere, they create a pale, soft green, the most familiar color of the aurora. When they meet oxygen even higher up, the sky glows red, deep and rare, like the slow pulse of a hidden ember. When they reach nitrogen closer to Earth, they create purples, blues, and pinks, colors that flicker for only a moment and then drift away. The first quiet truth about the Northern Lights is that they are never the same twice. Every night is a new painting. Every movement is unique. Every color is a message from space, shaped by the invisible forces around our planet. Sometimes the aurora appears as a long, narrow arc stretching across the sky, perfectly still, like a ribbon hung between two distant mountains. Sometimes it looks like folded curtains, rippling softly, as if someone is brushing their hands across the fabric of the night. Other times, it forms spikes and rays, shooting upward like a crown made of light. And once in a rare while, it forms a halo, a circular crown that seems to sit directly above you, as if the sky has drawn a doorway into another world. Scientists call this shape a corona, and people who see it often describe the same feeling. The sense that the sky is moving toward them, not away. It feels close. It feels warm, even in the cold. It feels like something that should not be possible, and yet there it is, drifting overhead in complete silence. Silence is a strange thing with the aurora. Most people never hear it. The sky doesn't make sound the way a storm does, or a waterfall, or the wind. But there are rare moments when the aurora seems to whisper. Soft crackles, faint pops, a gentle rushing sound like static dissolving in the air. These sounds have been recorded in remote places. Scientists debate whether they are real or illusions, but people who have heard them often describe the same thing. A quiet, almost electrical sigh that appears only during the brightest displays. The light of the aurora can be bright enough to see your shadow on the snow, bright enough to walk at night without a lamp, bright enough that the whiteness of the ground reflects the green glow, turning the whole landscape into pale jade. But even when it is bright, it is still gentle. The light is soft, never harsh. It doesn't glare. It doesn't sting the eyes. It floats and folds as if the air were made of silk. There are nights when the aurora moves slowly, like breathing, up, down, fading, returning, as if the sky itself was alive, resting in a peaceful rhythm. And there are nights when it dances, twisting rapidly, swirling, curling into spirals that look almost like waves. If you watch long enough, you begin to feel that the sky is telling a story only it understands. Most of the time, the northern lights appear far from cities. Light pollution washes out their delicate glow, but there are rare nights when the aurora is so strong that it can be seen above towns and streets, glowing past rooftops and reflecting in windows. People stop, step outside, and watch the sky together, even if they never speak to one another. Moments like that make the world feel small and connected. The aurora forms an invisible oval around each magnetic pole, a ring where the lights appear most often. This is why countries like Norway, Iceland, Canada, and Finland see them so frequently. But the aurora can travel far when the sun is active. There have been nights when people in Germany, France, and even Spain saw faint colours drifting above the horizon. And the farthest recorded sighting took place in India, near the equator, during an enormous solar storm more than a century ago. No two auroras are identical, not in shape, not in colour, not in motion. Each one is a one-of-a-kind event created by a combination of space, sunlight, and Earth's hidden magnetic pathways. The northern lights have accompanied the Earth for billions of years. Long before humans existed, long before mammals existed, long before the first plants touched the land, the sky was glowing with gentle light. Imagine ancient seas with nothing but simple life drifting beneath them, while green waves shimmered in the atmosphere above. Imagine the cold, empty continents before forests grew, lit by silent curtains of colour. And even now, when you watch the aurora, you are seeing something older than history, a dance that began at the dawn of our planet. Sometimes the aurora hides behind clouds, lighting them from above like lanterns. Sometimes it stretches across the entire sky from horizon to horizon. Sometimes it disappears suddenly, as if someone dimmed the lights. And sometimes it appears again minutes later, brighter than before. One soft truth about the aurora is that it teaches patience. You never know when it will show. You cannot force it. You can only wait, breathe, and let the night unfold on its own. People who chase the northern lights often talk about a strange calm they feel while watching. The world slows down. Thoughts soften. The cold doesn't matter as much. Time seems to lengthen and quiet itself, as if the universe is giving you permission to rest. Even the science behind the aurora feels peaceful. No explosions, no thunder, only particles drifting, bumping into atoms, and turning that tiny collision into gentle light. Some auroras appear as soft smudges, like watercolour strokes on dark paper. Others are sharp and crisp, with vivid lines that slice across the darkness. Some look like fog. Some look like fire. Some look like rivers. Some look like wings. But all of them share one feeling. They make the night seem bigger and softer at the same time. When you look at an aurora, you are seeing the interplay of the sun and the earth, two distant giants connected through invisible threads. It is a quiet conversation carried by light. The first aurora most people see stays with them forever. Not just the colour, not just the shape, but the feeling. the way the world seems to pause, the way the cold air feels suddenly lighter, the way your heartbeat seems to sync with the slow movement above. Watching the aurora is like listening to a song you can't hear but somehow understand. It is peaceful, it is ancient, it is one of the gentlest gifts our planet offers. And this chapter, this first quiet part of our story, captures the beginning of that soft, luminous mystery. The northern lights never begin or end in the same way. After the soft foundations of the first chapter, the next layer unfolds deeper into the hidden patterns of the aurora, the structures beneath the glow, the rhythms shaping its movement, and the quiet phenomena that appear only in the most patient moments of the night. High above the Earth, the aurora follows invisible pathways drawn by the planet's magnetic field. These pathways form loops, arcs, and curves that guide particles like rivers flowing through the sky. And even though the aurora looks wild and unpredictable to the human eye, its movement is shaped by these silent magnetic structures. Every ripple, every twist, every sudden burst of motion follows a rule written in the thin space above the world. Sometimes the aurora appears as a narrow arc stretching from horizon to horizon, perfectly still, as if the sky were holding its breath. This arc may remain unchanged for an hour, soft and restrained. But then, as if waking suddenly, it begins to brighten from within. A pulse of green, then a wave rolling outward, then thin vertical lines forming like strands of a glowing curtain. These vertical strands are one of the most recognizable features of the aurora. They hang like long silk drapes, shimmering as if brushed by an invisible wind. They can be tall or short, sharp or faint, slow or fast. Sometimes they drift sideways in unison. Sometimes they separate into many layered shapes, weaving over one another with gentle rhythm. On rare nights, the aurora forms what scientists call picket fences, thin, repetitive vertical beams lined up like glowing posts. They flicker quickly, vanishing and returning in irregular intervals. The effect is mesmerizing, like watching the sky blink softly. In contrast to these structured forms, there are nights when the aurora becomes patchy, soft glowing clouds that pulse on and off without warning. Each patch behaves independently. One brightens, another fades, another returns stronger. This creates a gentle heartbeat across the heavens, an uneven rhythm that can continue quietly for hours. When the solar wind strengthens, the aurora becomes more dynamic. Colors sharpen, patterns accelerate. The sky begins to twist and fold in ways that seem impossible. Long spirals form, rotating slowly like galaxies made of light. Waves ripple outward in arcs. Ribbons stretch across the entire sky, splitting into separate layers and merging again. Some of the most unusual auroras appear as fragmented shapes, sharp streaks, broken arcs, slanted beams that cut through the darkness at odd angles. These rare forms often appear during disturbances in the magnetic field, when particles flow irregularly along altered pathways. A strong aurora can glow so brightly that it casts shadows on the ground. Though the shadows are faint, they are real. Long, soft silhouettes stretching across snow and ice. Under this brightness, the world becomes still, almost otherworldly. The snow reflects green light upward. Frozen lakes glow softly. Ice crystals sparkle in colors that shift as the sky moves. Sometimes the aurora appears low on the horizon, barely visible. Other times it rises so high that it arcs above your head, curving into a dome of drifting color. And on a few rare nights, the aurora fills the entire sky at once, creating a sense that the world is surrounded by a living ocean of light. The colors of the aurora depend on the height of the collisions. Closer to the Earth, nitrogen creates purple, violet, and deep blue tones. A little higher, oxygen creates the familiar green glow. Higher still, Oxygen produces red, a subtle, rare, mysterious shade that can spread across the sky like quiet fire. Green is the most common color. Red is powerful and rare. Purple and violet are fleeting. Blue is almost invisible to the naked eye. Pink appears when nitrogen mixes with oxygen. And white, the softest color, appears when multiple hues blend so subtly that the eye perceives them as a pale, milky glow. The aurora is rarely a single color. Most displays combine tones, green melting into pink, purple at the edges of curtains, red glowing faintly above strong storms. Sometimes the transitions are sharp. Other times they are so smooth that they resemble watercolor soaking through paper. There is a type of aurora that forms extremely high above the ground, far above the main glow. It appears as a pale, thin arc, almost invisible, and is made of heavier solar particles called protons. It does not move as quickly or brightly as the lower aurora, but satellites see it clearly. It is like a quiet companion floating above the main light. Another rare form is the spiraling vortex, a rotating structure that twists like a slow whirlpool. It can last minutes or dissolve instantly. These spirals happen when streams of solar particles collide with one another, creating turbulence in the magnetic field. Thin arcs sometimes form multiple layers, one above another, like pages of a glowing book. These layered structures can spread across hundreds of kilometers, moving in synchronized waves that look almost too perfect to be natural. There are moments when the aurora begins to dance. Rapid, darting motions, bursts of brightness that jump across the sky, zigzagging with energy. These fast sequences are the most surprising. They appear suddenly, often during strong geomagnetic activity. Within seconds, the sky transforms from calm to wild, then settles again as if nothing happened. The aurora is strongly shaped by the Earth's magnetic poles, but the geographic poles and magnetic poles are not the same. Because the magnetic poles wander over time, the aurora oval, the zone where auroras appear most frequently, shifts slowly across the planet. Centuries ago, it was in a slightly different location than it is today. Centuries from now, it will shift again. Strong auroral storms can bring the lights far from their usual place. When powerful solar bursts hit Earth, the aurora can spread southward, appearing in countries where it is rarely seen, over forests in Germany, over castles in France, over deserts in the Middle East, and once in the late 1800s, even over India. Not all auroras move gracefully. Some pulse quickly like distant lanterns turning on and off. Some flicker erratically. Some appear as thin horizontal bands that stretch across the sky like lines drawn with a ruler. These unusual forms are often captured only by cameras, appearing too faint or too quick for the human eye. Cameras reveal another truth. The aurora is richer in color than we can see. Our eyes struggle to detect blue and purple at night, but long exposure photographs bring out the full spectrum. What appears as faint green to us may be a vivid display when captured through a lens. Despite their mysterious shapes, auroras are surprisingly delicate. They depend on fragile interactions between solar particles, Earth's magnetic field, and the thin air high above us. A shift in any of these factors, even a small one, changes the entire appearance of the lights. Some auroras resemble waves breaking on a distant shore. Others resemble drapes in a quiet room. Some resemble feathers, soft and detailed. Some resemble rays of sunlight filtered through a forest. Each form is temporary, a moment of cosmic weather that will never return exactly the same way again. When the aurora glows strongly, the air can feel different, colder, sharper, still. Though the temperature does not change, the mind perceives the world differently under the shifting lights. Everything feels heightened, sounds quieter, colors softer, thoughts slower. There are reports from centuries ago describing auroras so bright that people mistook them for dawn. sky glowing red like fire, land glowing green like water, snow reflecting the sky so intensely that travelers walked at night without torches. Yet most of the time the aurora remains gentle, a thin, quiet arc, drifting slowly across frozen landscapes while the world sleeps. Among the rarest forms is the Steve phenomenon, a straight, narrow band of purple light stretching across the sky. It is not a typical aurora, but it appears during the same magnetic disturbances. Next to it, green vertical stripes may form, creating a strange fence-like structure. Steve is one of the newest discoveries in skywatching, and it remains largely unexplained. Strong auroras can affect radio signals, GPS systems, and power grids, but these effects are subtle in daily life. Faint disruptions, short flickers, brief static, nothing like storms or lightning. Instead, it's the quiet reminder that the sky above us is not empty, but full of delicate electrical interactions. Some people say they feel a sense of peace during auroras, even if they cannot explain why. There is a natural rhythm in the slow movement, a soothing effect in the soft transitions of colour. The lights seem to quiet the mind, creating stillness even in cold and wind. Others feel lifted, energized, inspired. The aurora is one of the few natural events that creates calm and awe at the same time, the feeling of watching something ancient, powerful, and impossibly gentle. The patterns of the aurora remind us that the sky is not static, it is alive, breathing, responding to forces we cannot see. And even though we understand the science, the light still feels like a gift, something offered, not demanded. The northern lights are not merely a spectacle, they are a quiet language written in the heavens. A story told through colour and silence, a reminder of the connection between earth and sun, between space and atmosphere, between what we know and what we still do not understand. As the patterns shift, fade, and return, the sky feels timeless, a mirror reflecting the calm we seek inside ourselves. And so the second chapter settles softly into the night, a continuation of the silent dance that the aurora performs above the sleeping world. After exploring the deeper patterns of the aurora, its shapes, its drifting currents, its silent structures, guided by invisible magnetic lines, the next layer of this quiet journey reaches into something older, something woven into human history long before the first scientific explanation appeared. The aurora has always been more than a physical phenomenon. For thousands of years, it has been a presence, a sign, a story whispered through generations. And within these stories lie some of the most peaceful and human truths about the northern lights. Long before telescopes, satellites, and charts of the magnetosphere, people looked up at the glowing sky with equal measures of awe and humility. They did not know about solar wind or charged particles, but they knew what the lights made them feel: wonder, calm, curiosity, fear, hope. And from those feelings, they shaped their understanding of the world. In the far north, among icy landscapes and endless nights, the Sami people carried the belief that the aurora was alive with the souls of the departed. When the lights shone overhead, the world felt closer to the unseen. Stillness filled the air. Voices became whispers. The boundary between life and the beyond felt thinner. Children were told to behave respectfully, not to wave or whistle at the lights. The aurora was sacred, delicate, like a guest who should not be disturbed. In Finland, another image emerged, a gentler, warmer story. They imagined a magical fox running across snowy hills, dragging its bushy tail through the drifts. As the fox ran, its tail struck the snow, sending sparks into the sky. These sparks soared upward and spread into the shifting lights of the aurora. The fox was silent, swift, almost mythic, a creature of the cold north whose footsteps painted the heavens. Further west in Iceland, people describe the aurora as frost flames, a contradiction in words, yet perfectly fitting. The lights looked like fire but brought no heat. They flickered like flames but emerged from a sky of ice. Poets used the aurora as a metaphor for things that were beautiful yet unreachable, close yet untouchable. Among Inuit communities, the aurora held a rich tapestry of meaning. Some believed the lights were the spirits of children playing in the sky, kicking a ball made of walrus skulls. Their laughter was silent, but the movement of the lights carried a sense of playfulness. Others believed the lights were pathways for souls moving toward the afterlife. When the aurora shifted quickly, they imagined the spirits traveling with purpose and speed. Some groups believed the aurora could carry messages from ancestors. The flickering patterns were seen as signs, subtle signals meant only for those who took the time to watch with patience and respect. The sky became a storyteller, and its language was color and motion. In ancient China, the aurora was attributed to great celestial dragons. These dragons battled across the heavens, their fiery breath creating streaks of red and green. The sky became a stage for epic struggle, yet the dragons moved silently, large beings with scales that shimmered in the night. The battles were not violent but ceremonial, a cosmic dance of power. In Japan, the aurora carried a message of good fortune. Children conceived under the northern lights were believed to be blessed with intelligence and strong character. Even in modern times, some couples travel to northern regions hoping for this gentle blessing, letting the lights wash over them like a quiet promise. The Vikings believed the northern lights were reflections from the shields of the Valkyries. These warrior maidens rode across the sky at night, guiding fallen warriors to the afterlife. The shimmering lights were their armor catching the celestial glow, their movement across the heavens a sign that spirits were being carried to the halls beyond. In this belief, the aurora became both a memorial and a celebration, a bright reminder of bravery and destiny. In Scotland, people called the aurora the Merry Dancers. The lights were seen as spirits dancing joyously across the night, weaving and swirling like ribbons in a celebration. Some believed the colours indicated emotion: green for harmony, red for conflict, purple for mystery. The sky became a theatre, and the dancers performed without music, without sound, guided only by the rhythm of the universe. Meanwhile, in medieval Europe, the aurora was sometimes met with fear. Red lights in particular were seen as ominous, believed to predict war or great change. Chroniclers described blood skies, fires that burned without heat, signs that armies would soon clash. These interpretations came from misunderstanding, but they also reflected how deeply the aurora touched human emotions. Even those who feared the lights could not ignore their power. In North America, many indigenous tribes saw the aurora as a spiritual force. The Cree believed the lights were the dance of spirits, moving across the heavens in silent celebration. The Menominee imagined the lights as the fires of gentle giants who lived in the far north. The lights were a sign of their peaceful presence, a reminder that great beings watched over the land. Some tribes believed the aurora helped guide souls to the afterlife. Others believed it was a form of communication, a visual message sent by the ancestors. Still others believed the lights could be consulted for wisdom, that the shape and motion of the aurora held meaning if you watched closely enough. Every culture shaped the aurora in its own way, but one thing was universal. No one saw it as ordinary. It was always more. More than light, more than color, more than weather. It was a presence that entered the night with quiet purpose. Even today, modern viewers often feel the same ancient spark of emotion. They step into the cold, tilt their heads upward, and feel something stir inside, something calm, something curious, something old. It is the same feeling their ancestors felt centuries ago, even if the explanations have changed. Modern science provides clarity, but it does not remove wonder. We can describe electrons, magnetic reconnection, solar flares, atmospheric collisions. We can track the solar wind and predict geomagnetic storms. We can measure the height of the glow and the speed of the currents. Yet when the lights appear, all these numbers soften into the background. The experience becomes emotional, not analytical, a feeling rather than a fact. Many travelers describe their first encounter with the aurora as a moment of stillness. Breath slows, shoulders relax, the world seems bigger and more open. A sense of connection spreads, not necessarily to the myths of the past, but to the simple awareness that one is standing beneath something ancient. Some people feel humbled, others feel inspired. Some feel peace so deep it brings them to tears. The aurora awakens different emotions in everyone, yet leaves no one unchanged. The stories of ancient cultures echo through these modern reactions. Even if we no longer believe in fox flames, dragon battles, or dancing spirits, the emotional truth behind those stories remains. The aurora still feels alive. It still feels meaningful. It still feels like a message, not in words, but in quiet presence. The movement of the aurora can feel like communication, a slow wave spreading across the sky like a gentle greeting, a sudden burst of light like an exclamation, a soft fade into darkness like a whispered farewell. Not literal speech, but a language of patterns and glow. Some people say the aurora seems to respond to them, brightening when they look up, shifting when they step outside, moving differently when they breathe deeply. Of course, this is coincidence, but the feeling is real. The lights make you feel noticed, even if they do not see. The stillness under the aurora has inspired countless artists. Painters have tried to capture the curves. Writers have described the calm. Poets have compared the lights to breath, water, fire, silk, or memory. Musicians have created melodies shaped like the slow movement of the sky. And scientists, despite their precision, often speak of the aurora in poetic terms. They call it dancing, rippling, breathing, flowing. No technical word seems fitting enough to replace the emotional experience. The aurora also inspires a sense of belonging, a shared human experience that crosses borders, languages, and time. When strangers gather to watch the lights, they rarely speak. Yet everyone feels the same hush, the same wonder, the same soft connection. The aurora creates community without conversation. In places where the lights appear often, people learn to read them like weather. Hunters watch the intensity of the glow to predict snowstorms. Fishermen note the color shifts to determine conditions on the sea. Travelers judge the softness of the arcs to understand changes in wind or temperature. Even the animals respond. Reindeer pause and lift their heads when the sky brightens. Birds adjust their migration paths when solar storms alter the magnetic field. Fish behave differently during strong auroral activity. The lights affect more than the sky. They ripple through the entire ecosystem. The aurora has also shaped stories of love. Couples have stood beneath it and made promises. Families have gathered to watch it together. Children have fallen asleep with the glow reflecting in their windows. In ancient beliefs, lovers who saw the aurora together were destined to remain connected. The lights became a symbol of loyalty, drifting gently, returning reliably, visible across great distances yet constant in their presence. There are stories of travelers who lost their way in winter darkness, only to find direction by following the glow on the horizon. The aurora became a quiet guide, not just for navigators, but for anyone searching for a sense of direction. Even in the modern world, the aurora remains a bucket list experience for millions. People travel for hours, stand in freezing wind, wait through long nights just for a chance to see the sky open with color. And when it happens, even briefly, the effort feels worth it. The ancient stories live on in these quiet modern moments, in the silence, in the stillness, in the shared wonder. The past and present overlap gently, like layers of light weaving across the sky. This chapter, rooted in myth, culture, history, and emotion, reveals that the aurora is far more than science. It is a reflection of humanity itself, a mirror for our hopes, fears, beliefs, and dreams. And as the silent lights drift overhead, we see not just the sky, but ourselves. After the ancient stories, the legends, and the human meanings woven into the glow of the aurora, the journey shifts once more into the quiet, final layer of the phenomenon. This chapter drifts toward the mysteries that remain unsolved, the rarest forms of light, the strange interactions between Earth and space, and the deeply personal emotions that the aurora awakens in those who witness it. All of these pieces form the last stretch of our gentle exploration, like the fading colours at the end of a long, peaceful night. The aurora does not simply appear, it builds itself in the space surrounding Earth. Far beyond the atmosphere, the planet is wrapped in a magnetic shield, a vast, invisible bubble shaped by the interaction between the solar wind and Earth's internal magnetic field. This bubble stretches far into space, compressed on the side facing the sun and elongated on the opposite side, forming a long magnetic tail. It is within this tail that some of the most dramatic auroral events begin. When the solar wind strengthens, this magnetic tail becomes stretched like a rubber band pulled too far. Eventually, it snaps and reconnects, releasing energy that travels down magnetic field lines toward the poles. This sudden release creates a surge of particles that rush into the atmosphere, igniting intense auroras. Even with all our science, the timing and direction of these reconnection events remain difficult to predict. A gentle reminder that the sky still holds secrets. High above the Earth, auroras sometimes form in thin, elongated ovals that wrap around the poles like delicate halos. These auroral ovals expand during strong geomagnetic storms, reaching latitudes far from the polar regions. When the ovals widen dramatically, lights appear in places where they are rarely seen, touching cities unfamiliar with the glow. Old castles, distant deserts, warm coastlines where snow never falls. During these storms, the sky becomes a stage for strange and rare phenomena. One of the most unusual is the pulsating aurora, where patches of light flicker in and out, sometimes in complex patterns. These patches can pulse slowly or rapidly, lighting up like lanterns in a vast forest. They appear without symmetry, without clear rhythm, like scattered breaths taken in darkness. Another rare form is the diffuse aurora, a wide hazy glow that lacks sharp edges or defined shapes. It spreads across large areas, subtle and quiet, almost invisible to the naked eye, but strong enough to saturate the sky with soft colour. Diffuse auroras often accompany stronger structures beneath them, like gentle clouds behind a bright curtain. When particles in the magnetosphere follow unstable pathways, the aurora can break into fragments. These fragments drift independently, producing small, scattered pockets of colour. Each pocket forms and dissolves, appearing briefly like forgotten memories rising to the surface. The most powerful geomagnetic storms in history created auroras so intense that they lit the night sky as brightly as dawn. Records describe skies glowing crimson, landscapes drenched in unnatural red light, ships navigating at night without lanterns. The lights were so strong that newspapers could be read outside in the middle of the night. Though rare, these storms serve as reminders that the aurora is also a force, not just a decoration. But most of the time, the aurora remains gentle, a whisper rather than a roar. Its strength lies not in power, but in presence. Even faint displays can bring a sense of peace, a slow settling of thoughts, a feeling of standing beside something ancient and patient. One of the quiet mysteries lies in how the aurora subtly affects the earth beneath it. During intense auroras, electrical currents called geomagnetically induced currents can flow through the ground. They're usually small, harmless, barely detectable. But they demonstrate the silent conversation between sky and earth, a soft electrical hum connecting the two. The aurora also affects sound, not audibly, but psychologically. In its presence, the world feels more still. Footsteps sound quieter on snow. Breath seems softer. Wind feels sharper or calmer depending on the glow. It is as though the environment responds to the light in ways we do not fully understand. There are people who claim to have heard faint crackles during strong auroras. Scientists debate whether these sounds are real or an auditory illusion, but numerous reports describe similar experiences. A soft hissing, a quiet popping, a subtle rustling, like static dissolving in air. These sounds, if they exist, would occur close to the ground, far below the lights themselves. The mystery is unresolved. Above the main aurora, higher in the atmosphere, extremely faint arcs sometimes appear, thin, pale ribbons made not by electrons, but by protons. These proton auroras are almost invisible to human eyes, but visible to sensitive cameras and satellites. They form a secondary layer of light, a quiet echo floating above the main display. Even higher still, ultraviolet auroras glow in colors humans cannot see. These auroras are invisible from Earth, but bright when observed from space. The ultraviolet imager on satellites records vast structures we never witness directly. Enormous rings, expanding waves, and spiral shapes drifting silently around the poles. These unseen auroras are reminders that what we observe is only a fraction of the full picture. There is another phenomenon called the SAR arc, a rare, deep red band of light that forms at lower latitudes during strong geomagnetic storms. It does not behave like a normal aurora. It stays still, faint but sharply defined, glowing like a red river in the sky. Its origin is tied to heat in the upper atmosphere rather than particle collisions, making it a quiet outlier in the world of auroral displays. And then there is Steve, an oddity discovered only recently. Steve appears as a long, narrow band of purple-white light stretching across the sky in a straight line. Its edges are smooth, its color unfamiliar, its behavior unlike any typical aurora. Beneath it, green vertical streaks sometimes form, creating the appearance of a glowing picket fence. Steve challenges the assumptions scientists once had about the aurora, showing that the sky still offers surprises. Despite all these scientific discoveries, the aurora remains deeply emotional for those who witness it. Many describe a sense of being seen by the sky, even though they know the lights are impersonal. Others describe a warmth inside, a feeling of being connected to time, to ancestors who once watched, to future generations who will watch long after we are gone. The aurora has a way of slowing thoughts. Its gentle movement encourages the mind to drift. The cold air feels sharper, and at the same time the world feels soft and open. It invites introspection, not forcefully, but gently, like a hand resting lightly on the shoulder. Some people cry when they witness the aurora for the first time, not from sadness, but from release, from a sudden sense of clarity or peace. Standing beneath the drifting glow, the world feels both vast and intimate, as if the universe has taken a moment to breathe with you. The colors themselves carry emotion. Green feels calming, balanced. Purple feels mysterious, distant. Red feels powerful, rare, almost otherworldly. Pink feels playful, brief, like a shy smile across the sky. Even the pale white glows carry meaning, a sense of purity and quiet. The aurora also has a temporal rhythm, not just moment to moment, but across years and decades. Every 11 years, the sun goes through a cycle of activity, shifting from calm to energetic and back again. During active years, the aurora becomes more frequent and widespread. During quiet years, the lights soften, appearing mostly in polar regions. This long rhythm mirrors the slow breath of a living organism, the sleep and wake cycles of a star. The Earth's magnetic poles are also slowly drifting. Because of this, the aurora oval shifts with them. Regions that once saw few auroras may see more in future centuries, while others may see fewer. The glow of the sky is constantly moving, evolving, reshaping itself across generations. Auroras also appear on other planets. Jupiter's auroras are enormous, visible even when the planet is far from Earth. They are driven not only by solar wind, but also by volcanic activity on its moon Io, a strange combination of cosmic and geological forces. Saturn's auroras form near its poles, shaped by its vast rings and moons. Even Uranus and Neptune have auroras, though faint and difficult to detect. Across the solar system, magnetic fields and charged particles create beauty in places no human has ever stood. Back on Earth, one of the most calming forms of the aurora is the corona. When standing directly beneath the lights, they can converge into a single point above, creating the illusion of light rays radiating outward in all directions. The effect is humbling, a quiet reminder of perspective. What appears as long horizontal arcs from the distance becomes a radiant halo overhead. The human relationship with the aurora is not just visual. It is atmospheric, emotional, psychological. The lights influence the way people think, feel, and experience the night. In the presence of the aurora, the world seems less sharp, more serene. The cold feels gentler. Silence feels deeper. Watching the aurora can feel like observing time itself, slow, patient, unfolding without rush. The lights remind us that movement doesn't need to be fast to be meaningful. Change doesn't need to be loud to be profound. As the aurora fades, it does so gradually. The colors thin, the motion softens, the sky grows darker, star by star. It feels like a long, slow exhale after a deep breath. The world returns to its quiet state, holding only the memory of the glow. The northern lights leave behind a lasting impression, the kind that follows a person into sleep, into dreams, into the quiet thoughts that come in the stillness of night. And so this final chapter settles gently in the mind, like the last trace of color dissolving into darkness. The aurora lingers, not in sight, but in the quiet sense of awe it leaves behind. A reminder of the beauty woven into the night sky, waiting patiently for those who look up.